Good morning in New York. Good afternoon in Africa. Welcome, everybody. I'm Jimena Leiva Roesch. I'm a senior fellow at the International Peace Institute, and I would really like to thank you for joining us to this event from local to global, building on what works to accelerate progress on the 2030 agenda. This event marks the culmination of a two-year journey that IPI embarked on with the United Nations Human Security Trust Fund, the Government of the Gambia, the Senegalo-Gambia Secretariat, and many other partners that have joined along the way. We thank you for your generosity, leadership, and spirit of partnership. We also thank our co-sponsors and our dear friends from Switzerland and Japan for joining us. Thank you very much. And we also thank our speakers and our panelists for your time today. The goal of today is simple, which is the same goal that we embarked on 2 years ago, which was how to support West Africa's local transformation. So I want you to take a minute to imagine, what does this local transformation mean to you? If you can imagine it, what does that mean in your world, in your work, in your life? Today, we want to share with you what has been a creative approach that we've imagined and that we've worked on to help this local transformation, even if it's just a ripple effect. We believe it's necessary to continue working on this task. So we're almost at the end of the high-level political forum. And at the beginning, the African Union's Commissioner for Economic Affairs said that 20 million Africans will revert to extreme poverty due to COVID. So the 2030 agenda and the Agenda 2063 for Africa both have extreme poverty to eliminate it. But paradoxically, we are at the verge of increasing it. So this is a crossroads for all of us. We are at a crossroads because we really have to think of ways to keep on track, to stay on track, and not allow this sliding backwards to happen. For him, he mentioned that Africa's local transformation meant changing the agriculture, manufacture, and energy sectors. For us, local transformation starts with acknowledging and harnessing the immense resources at home instead of depending on so many imports from the outside. We believe that self-sustainability is possible. So the report that we're launching today is the culmination of a two-year journey that we started with our partners, that we've convened a forum in the Gambia that brought together 8 West African countries and leaders from civil society, from local communities, from the international community. We believe that we have to weave those multi-layers from the local to the global in order to support this local transformation. And for this, we're honored to have such a great speaker lineup today to help us continue this journey. So Minister Tangara, you have been from the start force for this initiative. Thank you so much. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. It feels like just yesterday that we were gathered in Banjul for the Forum on Localizing the 2030 Agenda under the theme, Building on What Works. I'm elated to see many familiar faces today. Though we may be separated physically, our presence is a testament to our unwavering commitment to this noble cause. As you all know, the Banjul Forum, which I must say was the first of its kind, presented a unique opportunity to bring together actors at all levels of national and regional development to share experiences and best practice, and then synthesize this best practice into a template for sustainable development that is conceived and implemented at the grassroots. Without a doubt, the Banjul Forum was a resounding success. The development of country-specific frameworks showcasing the components, mechanism, and partnerships evident in successful locally led initiatives and the ingredients necessary for their replication is a formula which holds great promise for the attainment of Agenda 2030 in West Africa. Through this forum, we got to hear amazing stories of devoted champions leading innovative initiatives towards peace and sustainable development within their communities. Stories of fruitful cooperation between donor partners and municipal authorities. Stories of successful joint initiatives between the United Nations country teams and national government towards putting in place frameworks for sustainable development. Through all these stories, one thing remains clear. The development process must include all actors at various levels of the development process. As the famous African proverb goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Seeing all of you present on this virtual event leaves no doubt in my mind that indeed we are in this together. This event comes at a time when the world is faced with unprecedented challenges of historical proportion. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to wreak havoc on a global scale and constitutes a setback towards the attainment of national and global development objectives. We have each been affected in one way or the other, and most importantly, our work has been adversely impacted. Today's meeting is a testament to the new normal we live. And this brings to my mind the words of the United Nations Secretary General when he said, we cannot go back to the way things were before the pandemic. The UN is strongly committed to leading a fairer, more sustainable renewal. And if there could be any such thing as a bright side to this pandemic, it is that it has shown us the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Our ability to innovate and adapt even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. If we are to succeed in localizing the 2030 agenda, then we must possess this spirit of resilience and innovation as it represents a vital fiber of our desire to build better communities. Better communities make better countries. Better countries make better regions, and better regions make a better world. It all starts with our communities. This event, which marks the culmination of months of hard work, would not have been possible without the seamless collaboration between the Government of the Gambia, the United Nations Trust Fund for Human Peace and Security, and the International Peace Institute. I would like to thank the United Nations Trust Fund for their steadfast support throughout this process, and the International Peace Institute for being the driving force behind this successful initiative. I'm confident that the discussions that are to follow will be eye-opening as they will be enriching. Stay safe, and I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you so much. Those are very wise words. Thank you so much for all your endorsement and your continued support. And thank you so much for welcoming us so warmly in the smiling coast of Africa. Thank you. Next, we have Munyaradzi Chenje, an old friend, but also now the Regional Director for Africa for the DCO. Munyaradzi, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Jimena. Your Excellency, Mamadou Tangara, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Republic of the Gambia. Your Excellency, Minister Tamba, John Lamina, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Republic of Sierra Leone, Your Excellency, Ambassador Oshino, the DPR of Japan to the United Nations, and the DPR of Switzerland to the UN, Mr. Dominique Favre, Your Excellencies, distinguished panelists, and ladies and gentlemen, and all who are joining this meeting. It is my singular privilege to represent the UN Deputy Secretary General, Ms. Amina Mohammed, here today. She has asked me to convey a warm greetings and great success during this meeting on an issue which is close to her heart and for which she works tirelessly to achieve lasting impact on the ground. I would like to thank the Government of the Gambia, the International Peace Institute, and the United Nations Trust Fund for Human Security for organizing this important initiative and this event. I would also like to express my appreciation to the speakers and all of the participants from West Africa and beyond who have contributed to defining a framework for locally led strategies to advance the 2030 Agenda and SDGs, and in Africa in particular, Agenda 2063. The topic of our discussion today, from local to global, building on what works to accelerate progress on the 2030 Agenda, is central to the successful implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs. Building is a key word here. We build from the ground up and not the other way around. We start with the foundation. This is why local is the key to the successful implementation of the 2030 Agenda and SDGs, leaving no one behind. A principled commitment by our leaders when they adopted the 2030 Agenda and SDGs in September 2015, exactly 5 years ago. Local means reliable data and information on where everyone is, knowing those who are being left behind, those at risk of being thrown back into poverty and vulnerability because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the vulnerable, the marginalized, young and old. Local engagement is an imperative to beat back the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic and for our countries to recover better from the health, humanitarian and socio-economic impacts of the pandemic. Recovering better should transition to transformative change through the effective implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs and Agenda 2063. The agency of addressing the impacts of the pandemic should spare all of us in this decade of action on the SDGs, from local and country level to regional and global levels. Local engagement means responding to the needs on the ground, the way we understand those needs on the ground, the way we communicate the messages of the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs, and the way we implement with local ownership and leadership and involving diverse stakeholders and partners. The UN development system has been reinvigorated under the leadership of the UN, of the resident coordinator, to better respond to country-level objectives and priorities in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda and SDGs, and today also in addressing the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Under the leadership and vision of our Secretary General, the UN development system has and is contributing to strengthening 53 resident coordinators and UN country teams in Africa to better serve the people in Africa to recover from the pandemic and effectively implement the 2030 Agenda and SDGs from local to global. This means working with governments and diverse stakeholders and partners at different levels. The objective is to leave no one behind in implementation and impact, ensuring transformative change. Addressing poverty, hunger, inequalities, gender and women's empowerment, youth, jobs, climate change, and other challenges we face today. Our success will hinge upon empowered communities as the driving force of their own sustainable development objectives, supported by a broad range of local, national, regional, and global partners. I would like At this point, to acknowledge the Exchange Forum in Banjul last year, which provided a significant opportunity to celebrate and draw upon local leadership and ingenuity as the foundation of an inclusive and participatory approach to accelerate progress on the 2030 Agenda and Sustainable Development Goals. By placing the local at the center of multi-stakeholder partnerships, this approach helps national governments, the international community, and development partners to anchor our strategies in the existing knowledge, capacities, and traditions of communities for greater impact, sustainability, and resilience. It highlights the benefits that can accrue from meaningful partnerships that extend from the local to the global and are based on dialogue, collective action, and a shared vision for the future. To this end, I'm pleased that the participatory engagement initiated at the forum across the 8 countries in West Africa and with diverse stakeholders, including many resident coordinators and country teams, is being translated into operational programs led by the RCs and supported by the United Nations Trust Fund for Human Security. Once again, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for inviting us and for organizing this event, and wish you great success in the deliberation. I thank you.
Thank you, Munyaradzi. You mentioned that you're now in the process of working with the 53 resident coordinators in Africa. That's a very big task because the UN reform is now needs to help catalyze this transformation that is needed at a pivotal moment. I kept thinking, wow, when we were negotiating first the SDGs and then the reform, we never thought we would have the pandemic, and now the RCs seem to be in the midst of this really great big challenge. And so you have a daunting task ahead. And we want to say that we're really grateful that the Trust Fund is helping these 8 RCs in West Africa, because when we wanted to launch this forum, this event, we wanted to make sure that it would not stay only as an event, but that it would have very concrete follow-up. And so the Trust Fund is now generating a pooled fund for each of these countries to continue working on the outcome of the forums. So hopefully from those 53 RCs, at least we're helping 8. Now, Dominique, he's the DPR from Switzerland, Mr. Favre. Thank you so much for joining us today. You have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Jimena. Messieurs les ministres, Excellences, chers et chers collègues, mesdames, messieurs, c'est un grand privilège et un plaisir de vous adresser ce message de bienvenue à l'ouverture de cet événement. J'ai suivi avec grande attention l'allocution de son Excellence, le ministre des Affaires étrangères de la Gambie et du directeur régional pour l'Afrique de DCO. Je remercie IPI de m'avoir accordé cette opportunité de participer au lancement de l'excellent rapport From Local to Global, Building on What Works to Accelerate Progress on the 2030 Agenda. Je félicite IPI aussi de nous offrir une rencontre multilingue. C'est assez innovant au sein de l'ONU et j'espère que c'est une bonne prémonition pour l'avenir. Depuis son adoption en 2015, l'agenda 2030 pour le développement durable est le fil conducteur de l'engagement national et international de la Suisse dans ce domaine. En Suisse, l'agenda 2030 est appliqué au niveau fédéral, cantonal et communal dans le respect des obligations actuelles des compétences et du partage des tâches qui a été décidé. Au niveau international, la Suisse promeut la même approche, soutenant les acteurs à tous les niveaux dans leur mise en œuvre de l'agenda. Tant en Suisse qu'à l'étranger, l'agenda 2030 se réalise au niveau local par une action convergente des autorités, de la société civile et du secteur privé. Si les gouvernements centraux sont des partenaires naturels pour la Suisse, les acteurs locaux sont aussi des acteurs prioritaires dans notre travail de coopération. C'est en effet au niveau local que les problèmes sont vécus au quotidien et que des solutions appropriées peuvent y être trouvées. C'est aussi au niveau local que le principe de « Leave no one behind » que nous venons d'entendre tout à l'heure semble plus pertinent et le plus réalisable. Il est dès lors nécessaire de mettre sur pied des processus de développement qui se concentrent sur les acteurs locaux. Les décisions doivent être prises de manière transparente et participative avec la société civile et le secteur privé local, comme je viens de le mentionner tout à l'heure, créant ainsi les bases pour un contrat social renforcé entre citoyens et autorités. C'est ce que nous cherchons à soutenir en tant que partenaire bilatéral, en tant que donateur, mais aussi en tant que membre de l'ONU et sur le plan multilatéral. Les Nations Unies ont beaucoup fait pour provoquer cette prise de conscience de la communauté internationale sur l'importance du niveau local. Les institutions financières internationales semblent elles aussi s'intéresser davantage au niveau sous-national, notamment dans la récente stratégie fragilité de la Banque mondiale, qui considère la société civile et les autorités locales comme des opportunités pour travailler dans les contextes les plus difficiles. Si la prise de conscience est là, la communauté internationale, donc nous tous ici présents, avons certainement besoin d'accélérer davantage sa mise en œuvre. Il ne nous reste plus que 10 ans pour réaliser l'agenda 2030. Nous devons donc rapidement mettre les acteurs locaux au centre de nos efforts afin qu'ils puissent jouer pleinement leur rôle dans la mise en œuvre des objectifs de développement durable. À cette fin, le système de développement des Nations Unies, avec ses bureaux de coordinateurs résidents, et je remercie beaucoup le directeur de DCO d'avoir insisté sur ce point, se trouve dans une position privilégiée pour pousser cet agenda, tant avec les gouvernements nationaux des pays partenaires qu'avec les acteurs de la société civile, du secteur privé et bien sûr du développement. Le lancement du rapport qui inclut les échanges du forum qui a eu lieu à Banjul en octobre 2019 et les expériences partagées par les différents acteurs de la région nous offre une fantastique opportunité d'apprendre de ces expériences concrètes et de nous inspirer des initiatives provenant de l'Afrique de l'Ouest en vue de renforcer nos efforts collectifs et de faire de l'agenda 2030 une réalité. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Those were well said. Thank you very much. And Switzerland is also has a really great example of localization through decentralization. So we thank you very much for being here with us. So now we turn to our panel. But before turning to our panel, I would like to briefly mention what some of the insights from the report we've launched, that it's both available in English and French. And many of the speakers just now has already talked about building on what works. And so what we believe from this concept of building on what works is that we have to really reflect on our roles. If we're from international community, or we're from sitting in the local community, building on what works means that we have to take a more humble approach to development. And even though we have the Agenda 2030 and the Agenda 2063, we can't think that we're going to parachute the SDGs into a local context and just think that municipalities and local communities will just kind of follow. It should be a flexible format that allows for greater inclusion and participation. And it's more an opening door so that we all speak a common language, the SDG language. But it has to have that flexible nature for really to work as part of the social contract between people, government, and international community. So with that type of thinking, we really try to think how we could make this different. And so another aspect that we've noticed is that many of the approaches today split the work between each SDG, work on SDG 1, SDG 2, SDG 3, SDG 4, but there hasn't been an approach to look at the entire system of the SDGs. And the SDGs were designed as a tapestry of connections. So once you focus on a specific SDG, that tapestry falls and you lose the complexity of the framework. So we believed in, I don't know if you've seen the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but in a way, shrinking the SDGs from the national to the subnational level makes it less overwhelming. It makes it less overwhelming to tackle the SDGs in a smaller framework. like in a city or in a local government. And I hope Minister Lamina can let us know if that's true or not, but but hopefully it becomes less overwhelming when it's beyond the national level to the subnational level, but still keeping the holistic nature of the framework. And third thing is that when as the Minister Tangara mentioned, we need a much bigger spectrum of actors involved. And so at the forum, we made sure that we would have local leaders. We launched this application and over 400 people applied from all parts of Africa to be there. So we really made it a very diverse platform in which ministers were sitting with local activists, with municipal authorities, to have a very non-hierarchical table. And what happened there is that national representatives kind of had an aha moment, and they realized that they had so many resources at home, that there were so many good initiatives happening within. And that's part of the localization process, to really just become aware that there's a lot more inside than what we've originally thought of. And for international actors, has to be a more humbling process, that it's not that when you're trying to localize the SDGs, there's already so much at home that we have to build on what's there already, and then just expand all the good initiatives on the ground. So with that, we will turn to our panel. We have 4 esteemed panelists today, and we will start with Minister Tamba Lamina from Sierra Leone, Minister from Local Governments. Minister Lamina, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you, and I hope you can hear me because I lost you a little bit earlier on due to connectivity problems. Now, Your Excellency, from Sierra Leone in the midst of a pandemic. And clearly that speaks to the issue of why we should use homegrown methods to help with goals. Sierra Leone, as I have spoken both in the Gambia and also in the US, I've been part of this journey. And I'm pleased and honored to again be privileged to speak to the issue from local to global with regards to what can we do to actually accelerate the SDG, achieving the SDG goals. Now, it is quite important that we're discussing this and we continue to discuss this because the challenges are obviously abound. And the more we focus our attention on the issues and actually ensuring that people have the buy-in, especially at the local level, then the more progress we would make as a nation. Here in Sierra Leone, I want to put it into context. We have a decentralized system. Of course, there's a central government, but also there are 22 local councils and 190 chiefdoms in the whole country. So which definitely means that governance, central subsidiarity, wherein things that will be done at the local level needs to be done at the local level. And that is what exactly the president has committed to, and strengthening that is one of my roles as Minister of Local Government. Here, you asked earlier about what is the local transformation that we all in Sierra Leone. Can you hear me?
Can you turn off your camera? Can you turn off your camera? Maybe we'll hear you better without it because it's a bit freezing from time to time.
I will still continue whilst the IT gentleman is trying to work otherwise we might lose time.
Yeah.
Possibly I would want you to bear with me whilst I just carry on, because otherwise we'll lose time and we haven't got much time at all to go.
Yeah.
Right. For us in Sierra Leone, His Excellency the President became president on a commitment to actually raise the livelihood of our people. And it was very clear that his manifesto commitment was actually geared towards developing human capacity. And he enshrined that under three big umbrellas. One, in terms of education, change issues, were all within that particular context. Here in Sierra Leone, as you are maybe aware, we went through a period of war, and during the period of war, we had systems that actually worked. And one of those systems was the People's Participatory Planning Process, which was the One Fambu framework, which we had discussions on UN last time we were there. That framework worked for peace, and it worked for addressing grievance. So it was like a grievance addressing mechanism. Moving forward, the country is taking that forward in its midterm development plan, and the midterm development plan has been cascaded right to the lower level. Now, it was initially consultations were done all over the country to formulate this particular document. But even after the document was formulated, we'll be moving all around the country again for validation of that commitment by the people in terms of what they actually want to prioritize. Again, I think there is a clear existential imperative for us to prioritize human development. And again, as a nation that has been through war, there has been a lot of issues that needed to be addressed. And for now, His Excellency the President has implemented the free education, and it's 2 years that we're going. And I think that has actually impacted on the number of people that could access education, especially girls. Because if you want to talk about improving people's lives, I think that there's a firm belief from this government, the New Direction government, to actually strengthen the issue of education. And that is free from primary to secondary level. But also in terms of actually encouraging girls to participate more, even post-secondary school. Scholarships were offered to girls offering sciences. Wherever you are in the nation, those scholarships were actually offered. Now, again, moving forward, the People's Participatory Framework, which is the One Fambu framework that we're talking about, is a social mobilization tool. A tool wherein people sit together and discuss issues just as we would in our traditional homes around the fireplace, where you have conversations and decisions are made. Because we believe people need to be part of the decision-making process in order for them to have ownership of the programs moving forward. Again, there is that renewed commitment of the people once they know that they've been included in making those decisions and ascertaining exactly what their priorities are. So even with the long line of things that they may actually say to us that they want us to do as the government, we've also moved around again asking them what 3 things they will prioritize the most if they were to be asked about development in the area. So along the 16 districts, we've moved around to also harness that sort of information from the people. So there are issues of capacity. Of course, that one we well recognize as a government, but clearly we believe that in order for you to build that level of capacity, you still need to have the people on your side. And those people that would be on your side would be some sort of seamless transition in them accepting that yes, they haven't got the capacity, but actually growing the capacity at local level. And that is exactly what we're doing. As I speak, of course, we're in the midst of a pandemic. We also established structures because it was a worrying period with all economic programs almost grounded in the nation. Flights are not in and out and borders were closed. What do you do as a nation, especially in the midst of this pandemic, considering that, of course, we are a poor developing country? There was the need to have a structured program with regards to how to actually implement whatever programs we had for the nation. And in that light, His Excellency, the President, formed a task force. All development partners were within, civil society organizations were also within, wherein discussions were had so that we all join hands to develop the appropriate structures, not only at the central level, but also at the local level. As Minister of Local Government, I led a team of other personalities all around the 16 districts, setting up structures that are now referred to as the district COVID structures, response structures all over the country. The development partners were also engaged, and their development plans that had been agreed with the government, they had to realign so that with the COVID response. So in the areas of agriculture, in the areas of health, because at the end of the day, we didn't want development to be stopped, but also we needed to have impact on the livelihood of our people. And it has been working, and surprise, surprise, I think the critics who said at the initial stage that being a poor country and a developing country wouldn't have come even up to this stage, still standing. But we're very proud to say that the nation is standing and we're moving on with even the developmental issues that are still, that we are contained in the midterm development plan. Those are still being laid out in the country in line also, including the COVID response. The Ministry of Finance did develop a system wherein a quick COVID response, I welcome a COVID response, and that has worked largely in terms of supporting, whether it's medium or small scale business people, because business is grounded in the country. So again, I know the bell is gone up. We think it is about leadership. It is about using the grievance mechanism, but the one farm framework, which obviously the government has been working alongside the Catalyst International NGO, setting up a secretariat so that this can be cascaded all around the country. I think I'll stop so far. I think I've seen the bell come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. And I think that one of the things we're trying to do as well is to shatter the perception that these countries are poor. You know, Sierra Leone is not poor. It's full of resources, and what you've done, like with this kind of leadership after such like war, just tells us that it's very rich. It may be economic disadvantage, but it's not poor. And so we really thank you for those words. The Fambultu framework is included in the report, and Catalyst for Peace is one of the partners. So we're really glad to have you here and to thank you for the experience shared. Next, we go to George in Guinea. George is the WHO representative in Guinea and former RC, and we had a pleasure also to host him in the Gambia Forum. George, you have the floor.
Thank you, Jimena. Your Excellencies, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Gambia, Your Excellency, Minister of Local Government, Sierra Leone, distinguished representatives from Japan, Switzerland, and other countries, Regional Director, DCO, representing Excellency, the DSG, IPI colleagues, fellow panelists. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to reflect and share following the Banjul Forum on Localizing SDGs, to which we participated at the end of last year. I would like to thank Mr. Vincent Martin, the incoming RC, who agreed that I should participate on behalf of the Guinea RC office and UN country team. 2020 started as the beginning of the decade of SDGs acceleration. It was UN at 75, and it was declared a year of listening to communities, listening to countries in order to chart the way forward in accelerating the realization of the SDGs. But this year 2020 also brought COVID-19 with its related losses in lives, livelihoods, and in socio-economic progress. We are witnessing, reversions in socio-economic progress, in poverty reduction, never seen in decades. So when the first COVID-19 case was reported in Guinea on 12 March 2020, the country was in the midst of its Ebola virus disease recovery and conducting its national development plan. But the country was also going through a complex socio-political transition with an electoral cycle supposed to be ending at the end of 2020. Today, the country has reported 6,276 cases of COVID-19, and a state of emergency has been declared since the last 3 months and has been extended again, although some of the measures have been lifted. For example, the curfew has been reduced, and some of the areas in lockdown have been opened. So the country team in Guinea is supporting Guinea in line with the Secretary General's guidance to put health first, to ensure essential services, and to build back better societies and economies. I would like to just share an experience. 2 days ago, I was at the municipality of Kaloum in Conakry. The mayor of Kaloum, Mrs. Toure, was with us at the Banjul Forum. And 2 days ago, we were with other officials from the Ministry of Communication and religious leaders from Conakry, discussing on how best we could strengthen community engagement in stopping COVID. I learned from that discussion, from that interaction, but by engaging communities, by engaging health teams at district level, the Kaloum municipality was able to reduce the number of COVID-19 infections from 380 to 5 cases in just a few weeks. This amazing local success was possible through engaging the elders, the religious leaders, the women and youth associations who went around with the young medical teams promoting face masks and helping the families with food, hygiene kits, and other necessary commodities. This is a local success story, but it shows how we can leverage community networks to scale up the COVID-19 response and improve social protection and also development. It relates also to previous experiences from the Ebola virus disease period, in which communities were able to come together and prevent and control the disease and eventually interrupt transmission. Was followed by plans to strengthen health systems and also regional platforms with Sierra Leone and Liberia on not only improving disaster risk reduction, planning for better health security, but also platforms for research and innovation. This is where the Ebola vaccine came from and was able to be applied subsequently in DRC to protect millions of populations in DRC, but also in West Africa, in East Africa, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda. This innovation came from a crisis. So it is clear that with the challenge of COVID-19, added to the challenge of accelerating SDGs, we need to reconsider our approaches with humility, with gravitas, and with resolve. Humility, as you said, Jimena, because we are facing many unknowns in this response. Unknowns in the area of science, unknowns in the area of future trends and impact of the pandemic. The infodemic with the false news and the fake news has added to the fear, the risks of stigma, the violence, including gender-based violence, the stigma, and also the fragilities of communities exacerbated by the lockdowns. So we need humility in charting our way forward. We need gravitas. We need a new sense of urgency in stopping COVID and in building back better. We need to put people, planet, prosperity, partnerships, and peace at the center of local development. This is possible. We need to bring together the climate change, the disaster risk reduction, and the SDG frameworks together and put communities in the driving seat to build upon their experiences, their traditional knowledge, and we also need to find concrete ways to build upon emerging digital, blue, and green transformations for communities to thrive and countries to recover faster and better after COVID-19. Ebola virus disease, as I said, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and other West African countries were able to build strong cross-border collaborative platforms. This remains a priority of the Mano River Union strategy, and the UN city Guinea with other UN cities in the countries are working together to foster new initiatives aligned with the Mano River Union new strategy. We are working in line with the ECOWAS human capital development initiatives to really strengthen vital statistics, health, water, nutrition, education, and social protection programs in the region. So in closing, and before closing, I would like to come back to the focus on listening in order to accelerate SDGs. Listening will be key to localizing SDGs and leaving no one beyond. In addition to the listening locally, we need to work better across borders. And when I say borders, it's not only geographical borders, but also cultural, religious, gender, age group borders in rebuilding after COVID-19, so that we can have a unique opportunity to innovate. This was done before, and the Ebola virus disease experiences there with a new life-saving vaccine, with new community approaches, with a plan to have 2 million community health workers across the world, helping health development, including 18,000 in Guinea. In response to emergencies, we use the no regret principle. It's acting with resolve and a strong sense of urgency to save lives and livelihoods. In trying times, we must try everything that can work and build on everything that works to transform and localize the SDG agenda in order to accelerate progress. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, George. And thank you so much for everything that you said. We need gravitas, we need humility, we need to listen, and we need to be watch and support the innovations that you've mentioned. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you're working with Aminata. Part of the goal of the forum was to create those connections between the UN and municipal authorities, which sometimes is not that obvious. So I'm really glad to hear that those connections are just being strengthened as the months go by. Next, we go to ECOWAS. Raheemat Omoro from ECOWAS. She is the head of Human Security and Civil Society Division. Ms. Raheemat, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure, and thanks again for inviting ECOWAS to this very important discussion, and we're happy that we have been part of the process from the beginning, and it's glad to see that we are continuing, building on what we started in Banjul. Of course, I'm going to give a regional perspective on how ECOWAS can support locally led Agenda 2030 strategies. And my first statement will be that the COVID-19 has indeed increased the risk and vulnerabilities of the ordinary people, of almost everybody, but more importantly to the ordinary people. So what that translates to is the fact that the people will rely more on government and the state. So it's greater vulnerability. So now the people will expect more from their government and from the state. And this is where international or intergovernmental organizations like ECOWAS will become more relevant instead of reduced relevance. As some people are saying, oh, in the COVID world, the UN, the AU, and ECOWAS will be less relevant. For me, it's the contrary. Because people are expecting more from governments, and the intergovernmental organization act as that interface and to push governments to do the right thing. So we are going to see a greater relevance of intergovernmental organization. In the case of ECOWAS, that will translate in the regional solidarity. Like the last speaker was saying, there is a need to have collaboration across borders, in this case, geographical borders, and that's where ECOWAS as a regional organization comes in and has been doing a great work in this regard. But what such organizations like ECOWAS will need is to re-strategize, innovate, very importantly, and reform to be better fit for what I call a redefined purpose in the COVID world. Redefined in the sense that we need to examine our strategies, our approaches, and like the last speaker said, we need to listen more, we need to get more connected to the local community, because we need to start the local transformation in such a way that we are informed by what the local needs are. So in this regard, ECOWAS has reprogrammed this 2020 work plan. In fact, what we are doing is we are mainstreaming response to COVID in all our 2020 work plan. So you have a situation where we are not treating response to COVID as a separate and temporary issue, but actually to mainstream our response to COVID in our planning, current 2020 work plan and that of 2021. As we speak, the first level of member states interface with ECOWAS called the Admin and Finance Committee meeting. The ministers from the Gambia and minister from Sierra Leone, they understand what I'm saying. The Admin and Finance Committee meeting is currently holding as we speak today. And so this is in response to how do we go about it? How do we re-strategize? And the last speaker also alluded to the ECOWAS human capital strategy that is currently being developed. So you could say that it's a very good opportunity for us to mainstream response to COVID in this ECOWAS human capital strategy, which is all embracing, not just for the ECOWAS Commission, but for our member states. So it's another great opportunity. Already in planning for 2021, we have new criteria for planning that is aimed at a redirection of resources and focus on areas to promote resilience, recovery, and reform in the member states. Specifically, there are some areas in addition to what I've just mentioned, but the first note of the caveat that I have is that we should manage expectations against ECOWAS comparative advantage. Often people think ECOWAS is exactly like the UN, who has UNDP, UNFPA. No, ECOWAS does not have those sort of development intervention agencies, or have like the UN, the country offices with residence rep and such, wide web of institutional intervention means. No, ECOWAS does not have that. But what ECOWAS has is the political, the convening mandate to support member states, to push member states to do things in line with the regional texts that have been adopted by member states themselves. So that's very important. And what ECOWAS has done so far in the area of a response to COVID-19, that we promote local transformation, is providing advisory and technical guidelines. In my division alone, we have issued an advisory on the impact of COVID-19 on children to all member states. We have reminded them the importance of not leaving children behind in their response to COVID and recovery, because it's always very easy to leave certain groups of people behind when you are dealing with an emergency like in COVID. So we had sent a joint advisory to all member states on how to mainstream concerns of children in their response to COVID-19 and beyond. ECOWAS president has also issued an ECOWAS statement against gender-based violence. And you will all agree with me, that seems to be one of the most dangerous fallout of the COVID-19. Too many sexual and gender-based violence being reported, of even minors and toddlers. So on June 22nd of June, the ECOWAS president issued a very strong statement against gender-based violence and instructed that we develop, as ECOWAS, as a region, our first regional action plan against gender-based violence. And that's what we are doing right now. And that we build on what is already existing on ground in member states and from local initiatives. We're also doing a feasibility study to establish what we call an ECOWAS Child Rights Observatory, because we believe that we need to keep a tab on what is happening to our children. So that is one of those initiatives that we support, locally led Agenda 2030. ECOWAS is also increasing its advocacy and promotion for social protection and institutionalized economic safety nets. It's very important because especially at the beginning of the lockdown, it exposed the fact that, especially in Africa, many people live on daily basis. And that was one of the most devastating fallout of the lockdown measures that most of our West African countries adopted at the beginning. So ECOWAS has been working on developing the ECOWAS Social Protection Framework, which we are hoping to conclude soon, which will support and guide member states on how to ensure that social protection of their citizens, so that in case we have a future COVID-19, God forbid, but they would at been structures on ground, social registers, such structures on ground that will help us cushion the effect so that we don't have a situation of having many people falling back into poverty or more people, being impoverished. ECOWAS is also in the process of promoting community-based economic growth because, livelihood is at the center of every human being's survival. So yes, social protection, but with the recognition that we also need to, build community-based economic growth so that people at that level can survive day to day and be able to key in other responses. There is also a refocus of some areas in ECOWAS, for example, agriculture and food security, public health. You all know that we have the West African Health Organization that has been very active. And of course, I think it was also the speaker from WHO that
Hello?
talked about research and innovation for us to be at the center of development matter. So this will be the, and also ECOWAS is redirecting resources to the right areas because it's very important. Sometimes you have a lot of partners, a lot of resources, but once you don't have that coordination, and I think it's Jimena that said so, the tapestry of Agenda 2030, we need to work together, whether you're working in child protection or human security. ECOWAS can also support, and that's exactly what we're doing, support our locally led Agenda 2030 by reaching out beyond the traditional civil society organization, to reach out to the private sector, to reach out to religious organizations, traditional, to broaden our scope of outreach so that we can reach more people at the local level. Although we don't usually reach directly to the local level as a regional body, but we can work with member states, we can work with partners to ensure that their interventions are directly connected to locally led initiatives. So in conclusion, I think the COVID-19 provides an opportunity for us to be better committed to deliver on SDGs. And I believe that ECOWAS and such organizations are in a better place to promote that connection between whatever we do at the region, at member states, to the locally led activities or strategies. So thank you very much. I just don't want to speak beyond my allocated time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And ECOWAS does play a huge role in the region and in supporting that connection between local to global. I agree also with your statement that you have to manage expectations because ECOWAS is still a growing organization, but together with the other forces, I think it can really have a big impact. Last but not least, Ms. Nerida Fonseca. She's the CEO of Innovation from the Republic of Guinea-Bissau. Nerida, go ahead.
J'aimerais premièrement remercier pour cette opportunité, que c'est vraiment unique. Depuis le Forum de Gambia jusqu'à aujourd'hui, ça représente pour moi une opportunité unique vraiment pour le niveau de cet événement, l'importance de cet événement et de tous les participants. Donc, je remercie vraiment pour l'opportunité. Donc, par rapport au secteur privé et société civile, je pense que l'engagement peut être d'investir dans la formation des gens dans différents domaines. Dans le cas de mon pays, par exemple, il manque beaucoup des areas qui ne sont pas développées. Par exemple, pour parler de développement, on doit parler forcément de système de santé, qui est très mauvais chez moi, et système d'éducation, de formation, qui est aussi très mauvais. Donc, il ne peut pas avoir un vrai développement sur cette area sont faibles s'il n'y a pas un développement dans cette area. Donc, je pense que la société civile et le secteur privé offrent déjà beaucoup plus d'opportunités au pays parce que les meilleures écoles, c'est le secteur privé, les meilleurs systèmes de santé.
Nerida, I don't think we can hear you. You can hear?
Allô?
Go ahead, sorry.
C'est bien maintenant? C'est bon maintenant? OK.
Yes.
Je disais que la participation, l'engagement du secteur privé et de société civile peut être à travers l'investissement dans la formation des personnes. On a 64, à peu près 64% de population qui est jeune, qui est composée par jeunes. Et 7% de population a besoin de bon système de santé, bon système d'éducation, qu'il n'y a pas vraiment. Donc, ce qu'il y a, les meilleurs sont fournis par la société civile et le secteur privé. Secteur privé et société civile aussi peuvent s'engager pour favoriser l'incubation de nouveaux entrepreneurs capables d'opérer dans les domaines, dans les plusieurs domaines qui sont considérés clés pour le développement de notre pays. Par exemple, l'agriculture. Notre pays vit surtout de l'agriculture. Et aussi, il y a des autres secteurs que c'est l'artisanat et beaucoup des autres. Dans la santé aussi. Donc, je pense que petite parole, c'est de créer de nouveaux entrepreneurs qui vont être capables, chacun de travailler dans certains domaines pour répondre à les besoins des populations. Parce que c'est nous qui interagissons directement avec les populations, donc on connaît très bien les besoins. Et ce qui est fait jusqu'à maintenant peut être renforcé, et peut être aussi répliqué, disons. Une autre parole, c'est par rapport à le compta, comment je peux dire? On sait que c'est le secteur privé qui fournit plus d'opportunités pour la population. Parce que on a ce problème problème politique qui est chronique. Donc, à chaque fois qu'on change de gouvernement, on doit attendre 2 mois, 3 mois pour que les institutions reprennent leur travail. Le secteur privé est toujours pénalisé. C'est pénalisé à cause d'une stabilité politique. C'est pénalisé parce que ne rentre pas dans l'agenda des Nations Unies, le secteur privé. Donc, il n'y a pas un contact. Le secteur privé, donc, reste à côté. Et parfois, la situation... OK, bon, disons que je vais faire maintenant un petit... Je ne vais pas prendre trop de temps. C'est juste pour dire, investir dans la formation, aider dans l'incubation de nouveaux entrepreneurs dans les différents domaines. Et par rapport au travail avec le gouvernement et Nations Unies, comme j'ai dit l'autre jour, je suggère la création d'une commission qui peut faire le follow-up pour tout le processus. Comme ça, cette commission va être indépendante. Même si on change 6-10 gouvernements chaque année, cette commission va être capable de continuer le travail et pouvoir aussi espérer vraiment qu'il y aura de développement. La formation des gens, c'est crucial chez nous. C'est crucial parce que ça inclut aussi leur insertion dans le monde du travail. On a le cas des femmes qui sont entrepreneurs informels. Il y a beaucoup dans la société et sont la majorité des entrepreneurs informels qui peuvent être soutenus, qu'on peut soutenir si on veut vraiment arriver à les résultats de développement de l'agenda qui est établi. J'espère que mon français était suffisant pour rendre mes idées. J'ai cette limite. Je vous remercie.
It's excellent. Thank you, Nerida. Thank you. And you know, I hope you can continue working with the RC and Munyaradzi is also here, because the suggestion you make of creating this commission that is a constant on sustainable development, given the changing political elections, is so unpredictable. I think it's an excellent suggestion to create a platform of committed individuals, both in all sectors of society, that can help Guinea-Bissau go through COVID and also to keep moving forward on the SDGs. So we will hopefully see that platform emerge, and you have our support. And we also hear you loudly that it's hard for the private sector to know how to engage with the UN, with the Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2063, and it's also part of the process to learn how to engage with entrepreneurs that, as you mentioned, are the main engines of growth. So thank you, Nerida. And ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to if you have questions to put them in the chat, in the QA chat, and also in Facebook and in Twitter, please send us your questions that way. Before we move into the Q&A, we have Alex Conte, who will very briefly, Alex, we have our owl, so you have 2 minutes, but we did think that it was very important to hear from another municipal authority in Sierra Leone to tell us a little bit about their work. Alex was at the forum. Alex, you have 2 minutes before the Q&A starts.
Thank you very much, Madam Jimena, for involving me in this discussion. Indeed, I'm grateful to the organizers and all participants for this very, very important forum. Indeed, we did agree at Banjul that one of the 3 things we agreed was that for greater national and regional intervention, I mean international cooperation at global level, we need to ensure that all countries come together with the same purpose, with the same focus, to ensure that the SDGs and the agenda for development must be addressed and localized to rural community level. And we also agree for this to be done, we need to prepare reliable policy and human capital development. For us in Sierra Leone, indeed, this has been adequately addressed on our return from Guinea with our minister. And the council was given the opportunity to attend at Banjul, so as to come back and educate the other councillors and as well as council members, 22 council members, on this development agenda and the sustainable development goals, which must be achieved by 2030. And this I was able to do in all our local meetings in the 22 councils. Had I not been invited at Banjul, I would not have been able to impact the experience and the knowledge I got at Banjul to the rest of the 22 council members. And that underlines the importance that for development to be rapidly realized worldwide, we must prioritize local councils to be the yardstick of measurement for localization of the SDGs. Because without the rural communities involved in our statistical collections on all sectors of life, we cannot be able to plan adequately and for programs that can be sustainable countrywide. And for this, we have been able to interpret what we have learned in Banjul to the rural communities to realize that needs assessment for general development must be paid, serious attention, because development cannot be sustained in the rural areas without councils being given the opportunity to play a central role. And for this reason, this year, my government, or that is the government of His Excellency, the President, indeed, because of the minister's experience at Banjul, he's been able to interpret all that knowledge together with me to the rest of the local councils. And that is why development programs, which used to be centrally based, is no longer the case in Sierra Leone. The Ministry of Development and Economic Planning has seen it necessary that from the very initial stage of identifying development programs, which must be factored into the National Development Plan, local councils must be developed, must be encouraged, must be involved. And this they did a year ago by identifying, by bringing councils on board to rural communities, chiefdoms, villages, chiefdoms and districts in the preparation of our local, national plan. And this has been done just yesterday.
Sorry, Alex. But Alex, you know,
Very much.
you bring a very important point, which is prioritizing local councils. I think that that's really key. And I'm so glad to hear that the Banjul Forum helped create those connections, because that's what matters most. I think that the disconnection between the national, the municipal, and the local councils has been a real gap. And it's really good that hopefully also through COVID, through the pandemic, we learned to work together and to weave all this layer of governance. So thank you for that. We really, really appreciate it. And so, colleagues, we've run out of time for a Q&A. So we will go directly to the closing remarks from Ambassador Hoshino from Japan. We thank all the speakers in the panel for their wonderful presentation. So we will hear from the DPR of Japan next. Japan, you have the floor.
His Excellency Mr. Tangara, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Republic of the Gambia, and Mr. Ramila, His Excellency the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Republic of Sierra Leone, dear colleagues and friends. In the first year of the decade of action, the theme and the scope of this event, from local to global, building on what works to accelerate progress on the 2030 agenda, are very meaningful and have highlighted many useful lessons for us on the 2030 agenda. As I recall, in May of 2019, a project of the UN Trust Fund for Human Security was launched in partnership with the IPI, International Peace Institute. As a person who has been involved in this project since that time, I would like to extend my sincere congratulations to you on the release of the report today, and thank all those involved contributed to the preparation of the report. Regarding today's discussion, well, the report which I read with great interest stressed four critical components, right?
Yes.
Those Jimena, I think, is quite aware, namely local ownership, decentralization, and alignment alignment and resource mobilization, I think. Yeah. I think today's discussion, it was very useful to elaborate with many examples of the need, so from my perspective, to take human security-oriented measures. You know, Minister of Sierra Leone and Raheemat at ECOWAS talked about food security, and George discussed the stigma of the people under COVID stress and the importance of reducing risks of disaster. And Nerida and others talked about the training and education for the people becoming resilient. I think those are the policies, you know, to address the human security needs. All insights, I think, drawn by the panelists demonstrated that the human security, particularly in local level, is an important prerequisite. And even that the comprehensive measures to raise the foundation of for effectively achieving, you know, our common agenda 2030 and agenda 2063. I think today's discussion has made us realize the need to strengthen the linkages between the 2030 agenda discussion and the concept of human security on the ground, especially in West Africa. I'm completely sure that actions at all levels, regional, national, including the role of the regional resident coordinators, which was discussed today, and local and civil society and private sector, of course, are the key driving forces for pushing forward the 2030 agenda. So let me take this opportunity to emphasize this point. It is very critically important to incorporate the concept of human security and the human security approach into the process of localizing the SDGs. I think the report points out how the world responds to the COVID-19 pandemic will be critical to making progress and achieving the 2030 agenda. You know, the COVID-19 is a serious human security crisis. Why I say this? Because it has seriously affected all areas well beyond the health emergency. It affected socioeconomic development of people, human rights, peace and security by posing multifaceted threat to the survival, livelihood, and dignity of people, in particular, those who are in most vulnerable. Here, we need to take total and comprehensive effort, but well contextualized, tailored to the local situation. That's why that the localization of the effort is very important, as we discussed today. Well, Japan tried to pursue to take those inclusive approach, localized approach, which include both the top-down and also the bottom-up approaches. At the national level, well, you know, Japan has SDGs promotion headquarters headed by the Prime Minister and comprising of all ministers. But locally, we try to make it effective so that we emphasize the dialogue with various actors, including private sectors and civil society. So we have action plans and so forth. SDGs are, of course, widely promoted in Japan and are being tackled at the individual level as well as local authorities and so forth. Well, even there's a very interesting story, you know, that this is different context, but you know, the high school kids are trying to clear the beaches from the marine litter. Those are the serious human security questions and the important prerequisite for achieving SDGs. in this way, we can combine the SDGs goals and the human security agenda together. Well, it is a comprehensive measure that is tailored to the local situation, not only to just collecting waste, but also to reduce the amount of waste generated and to raise awareness of the local community in the light of prevention and so forth. Anyway, the COVID-19, as we discussed extensively today, we will need to steer the course to progress towards the better normal rather than returning to the status quo. So Japan likes to take the lead in the international community's effort to implement support to realize human security on the ground by investing unprecedented amount of financial resources as bilateral assistance and through international organizations. In localizing the SDGs, I hope all stakeholders will keep in mind how to identify and overcome the various threats to the lives and livelihood and dignity of the people, and how to achieve a better society that put each person at the center and ensure the dignity of each individual in order to realize the full potential. This is often taken for granted, but the real added value of the concept of human security, and that's why I think this project is supported by the Trust Fund of the Human Security of the United Nations, the relevance of which has been made all the more clear by the COVID-19 pandemic, because as Jimena said that, this pandemic made people sliding back to the vulnerabilities tremendously, right? So that the human security approach is here to assist government to help their people who are in a difficult situation right now. Well, thank you very much for all your kind attention, and congratulations again on the successful conclusion of this event. I think that the job well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we will be circulating a summary of the discussions today, and we'll be sending it out to all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you for my co-author, Masuma, on the report. Thank you for the IPI team. Thank you, Ambassador Hoshino, for supporting this initiative from the very moment, as you mentioned. Thank you, Mernaz and Hitomi, Ambassador Tangara, Dominique Favre, Munyaradzi, Chenje, and all our panelists, and of course, all the ministers. Thank you very, very much for your kind attention, and we'll be in touch. Bye.